He thought it was just another night shift, just another mop, just another paycheck to keep his little boy fed. But when a weary single father takes a janitor job in a towering corporate office, he has no idea the woman burning the midnight oil behind the CEO desk is about to rewrite both their lives, starting with one look and an unexpected spark. Under the fluorescent lights, the office floor fell silent, except for the faint, distant sound of a cleaning cart and the weak ticking of the wall clock. It was well past midnight, but Rachel still hadn't left. Her desk was a sea of documents. The computer still lit up with unread emails and contracts waiting to be processed. She stood up, stretched her back, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window on the 25th floor. Outside, the city remained quiet, the streetlights flickering, the sound of traffic slowing to a whisper. But something caught her attention. Right outside, on the balcony jutting out along the edge of the building, there was a figure standing very close to the railing. Her heart raced. She hurried to the emergency exit leading to the maintenance ledge outside and flung it open. The night air was cold and biting. "What are you doing out there?" Her voice trembled with urgency, half commanding, half fearful. The man slowly turned around, surprised by her voice. He was wearing overalls, a cleaning rag slung over his shoulder, gloves tucked into his waistband. He blinked at her, then broke into a sheepish smile. "She's waiting for me," he said simply. Rachel cautiously stepped outside. "Who's waiting for you?" He tilted his chin down toward the street. Rachel followed his gaze. Below, in the dim glow of the streetlight, a little girl stood wearing a pink coat, tightly hugging an old stuffed animal. Waving up, next to her, an elderly woman sat on a chestnut roasting cart from a vendor's stand. The girl waved again and smiled brightly. Rachel was stunned. He turned back to the window and used his breath to draw the outline of a cat on the glass. He waved, and the girl below jumped up and clapped her hands. She had seen it. Joseph chuckled softly. "We do this every night. She waits, and I draw. This is our game." Rachel leaned against the frame, silently watching. The girl was full of joy, her face glowing with delight. That simple moment pierced something within her, sharp and sudden. "If my child were alive," she whispered more to herself than to him. "She must be around that age." Joseph glanced over gently, but said nothing. There was a long silence between them. Only the quiet of the city and the misty breath softening the cold remained. Finally, Rachel asked, "What's her name?" "Lily," Joseph said, smiling at the thought. "She's 5 years old. I can't afford daycare, and my sister is in another state. The office doesn't allow children in, so I asked Mrs. Juan, the vendor down there, to watch her. She's kind, keeping Lily safe while I clean the floor." "Are you working the night shift?" Rachel's voice softened. "I take any shift that lets me pick her up from school and be there when she sleeps." He shrugged slightly. "The cleaning job is enough for us to eat. I used to draw, but dreams don't always pay the bills." Rachel looked at him intently, his hands rough, his eyes tired yet kind, his shoulders heavy with more than just the cold. "You draw for her with steam," she said. "She thinks it's magic." He replied almost shyly. "It could be." A pause. The wind blew between them, fluttering the ends of his sleeves. "I'm Rachel." She said, "I know." Joseph replied, "You're the CEO." She raised an eyebrow. "And you are." Joseph replied, "You are the CEO." She raised her eyebrow. "And you are just a cleaner," he said without bitterness. The truth is, there was another silence. But for the first time in weeks, Rachel didn't feel lonely in it, and Joseph didn't feel invisible. Inside the cup, where his breath was fading, the drawing remained, soft and imperfect, a symbol, a moment. Rachel looked down at Lily again, who was still waiting, gazing at the sky as if it could bring stories. "She's so lucky to have you," Rachel murmured. Joseph didn't respond, but his eyes, filled with quiet purpose, said enough. Rachel turned back. The office, her footsteps slowing. Behind her, the man stayed, finishing another sketch for a little girl who thinks her dad painted the stars. In the gentle noise of the bustling morning in the waiting area, Rachel stepped out of the elevator with a coffee cup in hand, her mind filled with deadlines. Her assistant followed her, reading out loud the schedule updates, but she stopped mid-sentence. Near the reception desk, the doorman from last night, Joseph, was standing with a clipboard, briefly talking to a security guard. He wore the same Navy uniform, relaxed posture, one hand adjusting the strap of a small backpack slung over his shoulder. Rachel looked at him for a moment. Joseph noticed and politely nodded to her, not expecting anything more. But he was surprised when Rachel smiled lightly, briefly, restrained, yet genuine. It was the first time someone from upper management acknowledged him beyond seeing your mop. That evening, Rachel stayed late again. Now a habit. The office grew quieter as the floor was clean, and as silence enveloped the building, she heard the sound of wheels rolling on the familiar tile. Then, a light tapping from afar. Joseph was cleaning the windows at the end of the hallway. Rachel opened the door, leaning slightly against the frame, and said, "Do you always draw? Or just last night?" Joseph looked up, slightly startled. He smiled wryly, starting with smiling faces. Now she wants the stars. A lot of stars. Rachel stepped closer, a stack of paper still in her hands. Does she know he used to be an artist? Joseph's hand paused midway while wiping. No, not really. She thinks I once painted the stars. Did you know I tried? She leaned against the wall next to him. You don't talk like a doorman. He chuckled softly. I'm not always like this. A heartbeat passed. Tell me, she said. Joseph glanced at her, a bit hesitant, then exhaled. Before Lily, I was a freelance illustrator, mostly children's books. I drew stories about space bunnies and rain cloud dragons. My wife, Anna, she was my biggest fan. We often spent weekends sketching together in parks. We dreamed of opening our own studio. Rachel listened quietly, but then he continued, his voice deeper. Anna is gone. Car accident. I was home making pancakes with Lily. A phone call. And everything changed. I struggled to keep up with orders, but raising a toddler alone, the deadlines became impossible. Money ran out. And dreams don't buy food. Rachel's throat tightened. Joseph turned to the side and pulled something from his tool bag, a worn sketchbook at the edges. He handed it to her almost shyly. Rachel opened it. Inside were colorful pages, crayon skies and dancing trees, gentle-eyed monsters, children laughing under the stars, some unfinished, some scrawled in childish handwriting. But each page was warm, joyful, loving. Rachel paused, flipping through each page slowly. It's magical. They used to be his world, he said softly. Now they're just memories. Rachel looked up. Why did you stop? Joseph stared at her for a long time. His voice rang out, calm but certain. Because dreams don't buy food, but maybe they buy smiles. She gently closed the sketchbook. Your daughter is very lucky. She said, I think I'm the lucky one. They stood in silence again, but this time it felt comfortable. I should get back to work, Joseph mumbled, then tucked the book into his bag. Rachel walked away and then turned back. You know, most people think I'm difficult, that I don't smile. Do you? He asked gently. She thought about it for a moment. I used to laugh more before I stopped believing in gentle things. Joseph doesn't push. He just nods. Rachel starts to walk away, then hesitates. Joseph, he looks back. Do you still have the picture of the girl on the moon, holding a star? His eyes widen a bit. Yes, that was Anna's favorite. Rachel smiles softly at him. It's mine too. Show it to me sometime. Okay. After saying that, she walks away, the sound of her high heels echoing down the hall. But her steps are much lighter than they were months ago. Under the dim light of the office, Rachel slouches over a screen filled with endless spreadsheets, numbers dancing before her tired eyes. The financial report is a disaster, not in its content, but in the soullessness it brings to her spirit. She takes a sip of cold coffee and rubs her temples. An hour has passed, and she still feels like she's running in place. She stands up, walks to the floor-to-ceiling window, and stares into the night. Below, the city continues to move, indifferent and unceasing. And then, just outside the glass, a faint sound of movement catches her attention. Joseph is there again. He moves with a gentle precision, his squeegee gliding along the wide and practiced curves of the window. Then he stops and leans in closer. He takes a breath against the cold glass and inhales something from the condensation. A small house, a smiling face, a heart. She watches, unmoving. As he steps back, he catches her gaze through the window. He startles and gives a slight nod. Rachel turns back, walks to the door, and slowly opens it. Joseph. She calls. He hesitates, still holding the cloth. Yes, ma'am. Come in for a moment. Just rest for a bit. He seems uncertain, but steps inside. She gestures toward the armchair near the side table. Sit down. I'm not sure I'm allowed to, he says, still standing. You are allowed, she gently replies. He sits down, careful not to wet the upholstery, his cleaning gloves tucked into his lap. She pours 2 cups of tea, her late-night ritual, and offers him a cup. He blinks. Thank you. Silence stretches over a few sips. Rachel breaks it. Why do you paint them? I mean the symbols. Joseph smiles faintly. Lily likes to guess what they are. It's our little game. It helps her calm down. Knowing I'm right here watching, Rachel nods slowly, then glances at him. Joseph, what do you think of me? He looks up, surprised. I mean, she continues, you work here. I've heard the rumors, the names. He hesitates. They say I'm cold, distant, and indifferent. Rachel took a deep breath and exhaled. They're not entirely wrong. I'm not always like this. Her voice trailed off. She set the cup down and looked out at the city lights outside the window. I lost a child, a baby boy. 5 years ago. Joseph remained silent. His expression softened. Rachel continued to remain quiet. It was sudden complications. I was 2 months away from holding my baby in my arms. And then there was nothing. Joseph's hand tightened gently around the cup. My fiancée couldn't handle it, she said, saying I wasn't the same anymore, that I was too sad. He left 3 weeks later. Joseph clenched his jaw, but he still remained silent. They told me that I might not be able to conceive again. I didn't even try. I just buried that idea. I buried myself in work, in company growth, meetings, deadlines. I became the woman they say I am now. The silence stretched on. Rachel blinked quickly, then let out a bitter laugh. And you still buy tea for both of us every night. Joseph reached out, gently covering her hand. Warm, steady, no flowery words, just presence. They don't see, he said softly, but you do. Rachel looked at him, startled. You see the strength. I see the softness. You hidden behind reports and appointments. I see someone still looking out the window, hoping to feel something. Her eyes welled up. She turned her hand over and gently squeezed his. You aren't that kind of person either. They still say that somewhere. You know. He gave a gentle smile. I used to draw stars. They both chuckled lightly, tears softening the sharp edges of their past. That night, nothing was mended, but something changed. 2 people, each with their own pain, found in each other something akin to comfort. Not love yet, but a place to start healing. The next evening, Rachel stepped out of the office just as Joseph finished cleaning the long windows in the hallway. She held a small paper bag in one hand and walked towards him without her usual high heels, wearing soft, flat shoes that made her movements lighter, less authoritative. Joseph, she said gently. He turned around, initially startled. Miss Rachel, he quickly corrected himself. She handed him the bag. He blinked. What's this? It's nothing big, she said casually. Just something for Lily. He opened it and was taken aback. Inside was a tiny pair of pink fabric shoes, just the right size for Lily, embroidered with small white daisies on either side. Joseph swallowed hard. Did you buy shoes for her? Rachel said, trying to keep it light. I noticed her clothes starting to thin out, and she was always jumping and running, thinking that she might need something sturdier. Joseph stood there, the shoes cradled in his hands like something too delicate to be real. You don't have to do that. I want to do it. He looked up at her, searching for something in her expression. She will love them, he finally said, his voice hoarse. Thank you. The next night, Joseph showed up at her office with a brown paper bag smelling of spices and something warm. What's this? Rachel asked, raising an eyebrow. Last week I told you I missed homemade food. I thought I would bring you something from the street vendor near my place. He makes this banma dish that tastes just like my mom used to make. Rachel opened the bag and took a bite. Her eyes widened. Okay, that's just not fair at all. Joseph grinned widely. Told you. They ate together in her office. The window cracked open to let the night breeze in. For the first time in a long while, Rachel didn't feel like she was living on borrowed time. She felt present and safe. A few days later, Rachel asked, "Do you two want to go for a walk? Just nothing formal. I want to meet her properly." Joseph hesitated, then nodded. She would like that. So, on Friday night, after his shift ended early, they met outside the building. Lily ran ahead, her pink shoes lighting up with tiny blinking LED lights as she moved. Rachel knelt down and smiled. "You must be Lily." "I'm 5 years and 3/4, Lily proudly declared. Rachel laughed. "That's the best age." They strolled along the neighborhood, stopping at a cart selling grilled skewers and sweet corn. Lily tugged Rachel's hand excitedly when she saw cotton candy, while Joseph sighed theatrically and handed her some bills. Rachel took a bite of the skewer and laughed as Lily told a dramatic story about the ninja cat she dreamed of. She really was a storyteller. Joseph nodded. She inherited that from her mother. Eventually, they sat on a bench outside a closed bookstore, the warm evening air wrapping around them like a soft blanket. Lily leaned against her father, her eyes starting to droop. Joseph took his jacket and draped it over her. Rachel turned to him. "She's so lucky to have you." He looked at her. "There are days you feel you're not good enough." "There are days," she said softly. "Just having you around is enough." Joseph's gaze softened. "You're smiling more now." Rachel looked away and smiled to herself. "I didn't realize how long it has been since I did that." They sat there, silent, watching the cars go by. And in that quiet, a strange warmth appeared between them. A feeling that Rachel didn't know she had missed. Something that Joseph didn't dare to acknowledge. Hope. A feeling like family, like being home. And for the first time in many years, neither of them wanted that night to end. Joseph's hands trembled slightly as he wiped the last pane of glass on the 22nd floor. Tonight, his movements were slower and less precise. The mop handle slipped from his hand once, and he muttered a curse under his breath. It wasn't the work. He had done harder tasks. It was the weight of anxiety pressing on his spine like a second gravity. Rachel noticed it immediately. She was reviewing the film scripts at her desk, but something in his eyes, those tired, sunken eyes, made her pause. She leaned against the office door frame and looked at him for a moment longer. Finally, she stepped outside. "Joseph," she called, her voice calm yet direct. He startled and turned around. "Ms. Hale," he greeted softly, trying to muster a smile. "You look terrible," she said, without any intention of being unkind. Joseph chuckled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's been a long day." "It's not just a long day," she replied. "What's wrong?" He hesitated. His instinct was to lie, to say everything was fine, but something in her gaze, a rare tenderness, a quiet concern made him hesitate. "It's Lily," he finally said. "She has a fever. Look, I can't afford to miss work. I left her with Mrs. Ken downstairs. She promised to call if things got worse." Rachel's expression changed immediately, panic and disbelief washing over her. Her voice rose. "You left a sick child with a vendor." Joseph flinched. He spoke in a tense voice. "I had no other choice. I can't lose this job." Rachel stared at him. Then, without saying another word, she grabbed the keys and her bag. "Let's go," she snapped. "Wait, what to get your daughter right now?" The ride down the elevator was tense. Joseph sat stiffly beside her in the car, guilt written all over his face. Rachel drove quickly, but steadily, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. She didn't say anything, her teeth clenched. They found Lily lying weakly on the makeshift bed behind the vendor's cart. Her cheeks were flushed, her breath rapid. Mrs. Khan looked up and apologized. "I was just about to call," she said gently. "Her condition is getting worse." Rachel didn't wait. Without hesitation, she scooped the child into her arms. "She's heating up," she whispered, then turned to Joseph. "Go in. The hospital is 20 minutes away." Rachel hardly noticed the traffic lights. She kept glancing in the rearview mirror, where Lily lay in the back seat, wrapped in Joseph's jacket. Joseph held her hand, whispering gentle words of comfort. His eyes glazed with fear. In the emergency room, Rachel took control. She answered questions, filled out forms. Joseph paced like a man trapped in a cage, clenching his fists. Rachel didn't leave his side. Hours passed. They sat outside the pediatric intensive care unit, two strangers connected by silence, by fear, by something deeper. No one had the words to name it. Joseph stared at the sterile floor while Rachel's eyes remained fixed on the door. "I should have stayed home," he said at one point, his voice hoarse. Rachel turned to him. "And how would you pay the rent? Buy her medicine? You did what you had to do." "But I left her." "You didn't abandon her. You fought for her in the only way you knew how." Then the doctor appeared. "She's stable. The fever has gone down. You brought her here just in time." Joseph exhaled as if he had been holding his breath for hours. Rachel covered her mouth, her eyes filled with astonishment, and then, without thinking, she stood up and wrapped her arms around him. At first, he was taken aback, caught off guard, but then he hugged her back. She smelled like lavender and office paper. He smelled like rain, sweat, and something very human. "She'll be okay," Rachel whispered. "She'll be okay." Deep down, what she felt the most was not relief. It was something deeper, a connection, and the pain of knowing she had almost lost something that wasn't hers but still mattered. The hospital room was dimly lit, with only a bedside lamp casting a soft amber glow. The steady beep of the monitor matched Rachel's heartbeat as she sat silently beside Lily's bed. Joseph stood near the window, arms crossed, his eyes focused on the shadows of cars moving below. They both sat in silence for a long time, the silence so heavy it was beyond words. Then Lily stirred. Her little pinky fingers twitched on the blanket. Her eyelashes fluttered. Rachel leaned forward, holding her breath. Joseph turned abruptly at the sound, his posture shifting with excitement mixed with fear. Lily blinked slowly, her gaze unfocused, her lips parted as if tasting the air for the first time in hours. Then she looked at Rachel, her face blurred with tears and exhaustion, and whispered, "Mom." Rachel was stunned. Joseph stepped forward, his heart racing. "Lily, my love, it's not like that." But Rachel trembled as she raised her hand, gently stopping him. Her other hand reached out and grasped Lily's tiny fingers, so small, warm, and real. "Let her call me that," she whispered. "Just for now." Joseph looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, he saw something in her eyes that he had never noticed before. It wasn't the steely determination of an executive or the calmness of a woman used to hiding her pain. He saw the cracks, the painful, raw need, a wound too old to bleed, but too deep to heal completely. Rachel's lips trembled, her voice almost inaudible. "No child has ever called me that." Joseph swallowed hard, his chest constricting. He had seen her so strong, had seen her kindness, but he had never seen her unprotected, quietly crumbling into pieces. It devastated him more than any outburst could. Lily had drifted into sleep, sinking into the warm haze of medication and dreams. Rachel remained there, motionless, her hands tightly clutching the lilies, as if they were the only thing keeping her tethered to the world. She breathed heavily, her shoulders tense, as if fearing that letting go would mean losing something she had never truly had. Rachel suddenly spoke, her voice choked. She was only 5 years old then. "My daughter. If she were still alive." Joseph sat down beside her without saying a word. "I was nearly 5 months pregnant," she continued, her eyes never leaving Lily's serene face. "His name was Tyler, my fiancé. He left the day the doctor said I had lost her. He said he couldn't do it, couldn't watch me crumble." Joseph did not respond. He knew this was not the time to speak. Rachel said that she couldn't even cry. Not for weeks. "I went back to work. I pretended that I was fine. I built this empire as if it could fill that void. But it couldn't. Never like that." Her voice dwindled to a whisper. "I no longer believe that I can feel this way again." Joseph took her hand. She did not flinch, did not pull away. "She called me Mom," Rachel repeated, her tone almost reverent. It shouldn't have meant so much, but it did. Joseph looked at her with a gentle, holy gaze. "You were there when she needed someone. You didn't hesitate. You protected her. You comforted her. What else does a mother do, finally? Rachel turned to him. Her eyes were red but resolute, alive with something deeper than pain. I don't just want to visit. I don't want to be just a fleeting moment in her life. Joseph looked straight into her eyes. I want to help raise her. She said, if you allow me, I want to be a part of her world. Love your world. He was silent for a long time. His teeth clenched as he tried to swallow the emotions rising in his throat. Then he nodded, his voice gentle but firm. She had already loved him. And so did I. Rachel sighed tremulously, half smiling, half sobbing. I'm not ready to love again. Neither am I, Joseph said. But then you appeared in the middle of the night, in the midst of the storm. They sat there for a while, hand in hand, watching Lily sleep. The machine continued to beep. The lights cast long shadows on the floor, but something inside the room had changed. A silent vow was uttered in that silence. Not a promise of perfection, but a promise of presence. They left the hospital together the next morning. Rachel carried Lily to the car while Joseph grabbed the bags. Lily rested her head on Rachel's shoulder, softly whispering, "Mommy." Rachel kissed her forehead. Her voice was now calm, no longer trembling. "I will be here," she whispered, "every day, for as long as you need." And from that moment on, they were no longer two people revolving around the lives that had once passed them by. They were a family formed not by blood, but by choice and love. The change in the office was initially quite subtle. Tender looks, half-hidden whispers. Then it spread like wildfire. These rumors crept into the meeting rooms and break rooms, slipping under glass doors and into carefully drafted emails. Rachel Archer, a brilliant, ruthless executive and the gatekeeper, the one who cleaned windows and emptied trash cans. She's falling apart. Someone muttered, "He's just using her." Another said. A smirk added, "Midlife crisis." Or maybe she's just feeling lonely. Rachel had heard them. Not directly, not always, but in the enveloping silence when she walked into the room. Just like how some executives ignored her in meetings, in the sudden interest of the board in her personal life, she began to question everything. Was she being reckless? Was she blurring boundaries she could never blur? And what about the company, the legacy she built brick by brick, bone by bone? Is it now threatened by a man with calloused hands and a daughter who calls her mom that night she became distant? Joseph noticed the change the moment she greeted him with a reluctant smile and an unyielding gaze. "Come on," he gently said as they stood outside near the dock, where they often enjoyed the peaceful moments together. "What's wrong? Nothing," she quickly replied. "Too quick." He stepped closer. All evening he hardly looked at her. He said that she had been busy avoiding him, sounding harsher than he intended. Rachel clenched her jaw. "I can't let others see me as weak. Is this what it is?" Joseph asked. "Weakness? I don't know," she snapped, pacing back and forth. "I just know that people are talking. Investors are watching. They think I've lost control. Because you love someone who doesn't wear a suit," he said bitterly. "Because I love someone she has held herself back from." "Who what?" Joseph stepped forward and asked. "Who doesn't belong to your world?" She didn't answer. And that silence was truly unbearable. Joseph sighed, clenching his fists. "Why are you pulling away?" Rachel turned around, her eyes lighting up. "Why do you care so much?" His voice was hoarse and unfiltered. "Because I have loved you and I'm afraid you will forget that this is silence." Only the noise of the city below filled the space between them. Rachel stared at him, her lips parted and her shoulders slowly slumped. "I'm so scared," she whispered. "Not yours. This means losing everything I've built." Joseph stepped closer. "Then let's build something new together with me and Lily." Rachel's eyes welled up with tears. "I've never felt more like myself than when I'm with you," she said, "but I've also never felt so exposed." He took her hand. "You are not alone, and you are not wrong for wanting love." She looked straight into his eyes. "Even if it means losing everything." He smiled sadly. "If it's real, it will give you more than what you lose." She didn't answer. She simply leaned on him, her forehead resting against his chest. And for the first time that night, the silence was no longer cold. It felt comforting, because even in doubt, even in fear, there is still love. And love is real. A year later, The building at the corner of 12th and Maple had changed. What used to be an empty shop now sparkled with a wide glass window painted with watercolor stars and bright blue letters. It is The Light, Lily's art studio and gallery. Inside, children laughed and played, paintbrushes danced, and the walls were adorned with messy masterpieces. Behind the painting room, Joseph stood by the easel, sleeves rolled up, his hands still stained with paint. The man who once cleaned windows now teaches others how to see through them. He never told anyone about the people who helped him achieve that. The donation paperwork bore the name of a secret benefactor, but every time he looked up and saw Rachel standing by the door with Lily on her hip, he knew she had done this quietly and without recognition, because she was that kind of woman. Rachel had changed too, not in the sharp tailored suit or the way she ran meetings with unwavering clarity, but in the softness behind her eyes, in the way she smiled openly at that moment. Her office at the top of the tower still bore her name in silver, but most days she left work early to go to the workshop with Joseph and Lily. She swapped her high heels for sneakers, leaving her planner behind. The adoption had been finalized 6 months ago. It was a quiet courtroom, with only a few friends present. Rachel sat next to Joseph, her hands trembling slightly as the judge read the order aloud. Lily, sitting on her lap, was more fascinated by the judge's gavel than the seriousness of the moment. But when the judge looked up and said, "Ms. Archer, do you accept full legal guardianship of Lily Rose Bennett?" Rachel's voice did not waver. "I do," she said. Tears had fallen before the gavel sounded. On Lily's 6th birthday, the office was decorated with paper lanterns and twinkling stars. Balloons hung in every corner. There was cake, music, and laughter more than the walls could contain. Rachel watched Lily tear through her presents with Joseph squatting beside her, guiding her little hands. The light in their eyes reflected something Rachel had thought she had lost forever. As guests began to leave, as the music faded and the stars outside began to shine, Joseph took Rachel's hand and led her to the corner of the room, where the first painting he ever showed her hung. The house, the starry sky, a tiny silhouette holding hands with a child. Looking up, "I've waited to do this the right way," he said, then reached into his pocket. Rachel blinked as he pulled out a small velvet box. Joseph opened it, not to reveal a ring, but a silver necklace. On it hung a small pendant, a circle engraved with the initials R and L, and a delicate little charm beside it. Rachel immediately recognized that charm. It was the piece of paper she had left on her desk a year ago, the bracelet she bought while pregnant, the final piece of the child she had lost. "I found this the night we met," Joseph said softly. "You left it on the table. It took me a long time to realize what it meant." Rachel raised her hand to wipe the tears from her cheek. "This is all I have left of her," she whispered. "I know," he said, "but I think it might mean something more than it does now." He took her hand, placing the necklace in her palm and closing her fingers around it. "Rachel Archer," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "You saved my life. You gave your daughter a future. You gave me back a dream that I had buried for many years. She has made us a family. But you have made us whole." Rachel held her breath. Then she nodded once, slowly, and wrapped her arms around him. From the corner of the room, Lily's voice rang out, "Mom, Dad, look." She pointed to the table with the cake where a candle had just been lit. Rachel laughed through her tears. Joseph pulled her in closer. They held hands as they walked towards Lily. They weren't a perfect picture. They were something better. They were a family built from loss, from kindness, from second chances, and above them, where the window was, Joseph had once quietly tidied up, now hung a hand-painted sign with Lily's handwriting. "Home is where the heart is healed, and so are they." This story reminds us that sometimes love finds us in the most unexpected places, under fluorescent lights, in quiet sacrifices, and behind humble jobs no one notices. We watched a single father, worn but resilient, show up for life in the only way he knew how, by cleaning floors to feed his child. And we saw a powerful CEO, hardened by long nights and loneliness, open her heart not to power or status, but to sincerity and kindness. If this story touched you, take a moment to support this father, not just with empathy, but with hope. What do you think he should do next? Should he take the leap and believe he's worthy of love again? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe in stories that restore faith in humanity, stories that remind us we all just want to be seen, valued, and loved, then don't forget to subscribe to Touching Tales Hub. Your support helps these moments live on and helps us continue sharing stories that speak to the soul, because sometimes the smallest act of watching, sharing, and believing becomes part of someone's healing too.